This is VSiN's, the sports betting network.
You're watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network, where you get your winners.
Hour 3 of the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. I'm your host, Tim Murray. Coming up in 15 minutes, my partner in crime, not only on VSiN Primetime, but as well as the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast, Matt Humans will run through his best bets. And Matt, on every Friday night, he hosts the Circa Friday Football Invitational with some of the best handicappers in all the land. And we'll run through some of their best bets coming up here in just a moment. We'll keep our eyes on all the games that are about to kick off. But let's reset the biggest stories of the day. And we'll start with the Texas Longhorns, who are still worrying about their quarterback, Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers will not play today, so it'll be another game with Arch Manning as the starter there. It's a nice luxury to have if you're Texas to be able to bank on a five-star recruit in Arch Manning. But Quinn Ewers not expected to play today, as reported by Pete Thamel earlier today. Final decision is expected later on, but Ewers is nearly 70%, and the coaching staff is prioritizing his health for Oklahoma. If you're wondering, Texas at home today, 4:15 Eastern kickoff, as they are a small 37.5-point favorite against SEC. I was about to call them rival. They're not a rival. SEC foe in Mississippi State. Cam Rising, stop me if you've heard this before. We don't know his status for today's game. He did not play last week. A little bit of a surprise. He's dealing with that stitches on his throwing hand. And according to Pete Thamel earlier today, Cam Rising, a game-time decision for the Utes. By the way, speaking of this game, Utah and Arizona, our colleague Stormy Bonatoni, she will be roaming the sidelines there, 10:15 Eastern kick time on ESPN. That game right now, Utah minus 8.5 against Arizona. I'll say this. I've been a little disappointed by what we've seen from Brent Brennan and Arizona in year number one. There's a lot of lofty hope there. Maybe they show out today as an 8.5-point dog on the road at Utah. Here in Las Vegas, UNLV is hosting Fresno State. UNLV 3-0, ranked in the coaches poll at number 23, but everyone wants to talk about what happened earlier this week. Understandably so. A he said situation brewing. Matthew Saluka, the then starting quarterback, said, I'm out. You didn't give me my NIL money. And we saw the market react to this, going from 3.5 in favor of the Rebels to as low as Fresno State as a 1.5-point favorite. Right now, the market has shifted back to UNLV being a 2.5-point favorite. We heard from Chuck Esposito. The locals are betting on UNLV. And I guess I'm one of them. I took some UNLV earlier this week at minus 110 on the money line, believing that it wasn't that big of a drop-off from the Matt Saluka quarterbacking to Haj Malik Williams. And college football handicapper Brad Powers was on VSiN Primetime, as he always is, on Wednesday night. And one of his best bets was on this UNLV Fresno State game.
I actually like it even more now, believe it or not. I don't think Sluka's worth that much, especially, I mean, obviously we got a 2-point downgrade. Doesn't sound like a big move. But I think the market spoke this morning when there were some places that had Fresno 2.
Yep.
And we've seen some buyback on UNLV. Obviously, you threw a key number of 3. So, boy, a guy that's only completing 43%. I know he leads the team in rushing, but I actually went to UNLV's spring game. I like Haj Malik Williams. Not only what I saw in the spring game, but obviously you're talking about a guy that's got a ton of experience. He's thrown for over 8,000 yards in his career. He's a three-year plus starter at Campbell, a mobile kid. I think, without question, is probably a better passer. I mean, it's pretty much, does this galvanize a team or does it break them apart? I know they had another running back hit the transfer portal. I tend to think that it'll galvanize them at least for one game. I think they're clearly the better team if you look at them statistically, even though the fact that they played a tougher schedule so far than Fresno. Best bet, we'll lead it. Best bet right now, UNLV. Money line, or if you can find a cheap money line. If not, I'm okay with laying the 1.5.
That was Wednesday night on VSiN Primetime. Brad Powers, college football handicapper, joins VSiN Primetime every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern to run through the card and give out his best bets. Jackson Woodard, captain of UNLV's defense, retweeted a picture of Haj Malik Williams earlier this week that said QB1, and he said, "About time. Let's ride." So UNLV, one of my best bets, one of the best bets from Brad Powers. How about Auburn, Oklahoma? We see a flip of favorites in this game. As I joked last week on the Utah-Oklahoma state line, using the Michael Scott line, snip, snap, snip, snap. Kind of feels like that's what Auburn's doing at their quarterback position, right? They went Peyton Thorne to start. He didn't play well. They went to Hank Brown. He didn't play well. And now they've gone back to Peyton Thorne as the starting quarterback. Oklahoma's made a change at quarterback too, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's hear from old Hugh Freeze on their offensive identity.
We're exactly what we're doing. I think we're good at it, other than 10 turnovers in 2 games. I think there's open receivers. I think we're running the ball effectively. I'm not sure why we would want to change any of that other than maybe we should not maybe we should call a few less shot plays maybe, or landmarks. They're not really sharp shot plays, and maybe just stick to the RPO game, and we got to evaluate all of that, but don't feel like any. I mean, go watch the game, and you see. I mean, we're moving the football.
Did he put his dog down earlier in the day? Good Lord. My God. Hugh Freeze looked grumpier than, I was going to say, I don't know if you wrote the kid's book, Grumpy Jim, but my goodness gracious. It's okay, Hugh. I mean, I guess he's just upset with the quarterback position. But he's going back to Peyton Thorne, and Oklahoma's going to go with Michael Hawkins after Jackson Arnold's performance last week, and Hawkins gave them a little bit of a punch in the arm. We've seen a flip of favorites here. Oklahoma opened as a 2.5-point favorite, and right now Auburn, with clearly the leader of men, Hugh Freeze, right there. He is a 1.5-point favorite. Michael Hawkins, pretty impressive. Not a big-time recruit. Jackson Arnold certainly a bigger recruit than Michael Hawkins, but a dual threat type of guy, and Michael Hawkins will get the start today for Boomer Sooner. That game will be a 3:30 Eastern kickoff there, Auburn and Oklahoma. Before we get to the best bets from the Friday Circa Football Invitational, one more note on a game that's going to start at 4 o'clock is a best bet for me earlier in the week, North Carolina at Duke. And this is a unique wrinkle here that I forgot about. Mack Brown fired Manny Diaz back in 2013. Those are the 2 head coaches today, Mack Brown and Manny Diaz in year number 1 at Duke. He fired him as his D coordinator at Texas back in 2013, so maybe no love lost between those two. Mack Brown, interesting to note, he apparently offered to his team to resign after last Saturday's performance against James Madison, where they gave up 53 points in the first half. But the team rallied behind him, and they said, no, we're going to ride with you, coach. I like North Carolina. It feels like a little bit of a buy low, sell high spot. Look, Duke's 4-0. Congratulations, Duke. They are not a very good football team. They beat UConn by 5. They crushed Middle Tennessee State. I think me and the production crew back here might be able to put up some points on the Blue Raiders down there in Murfreesboro. And they won an FCS game, and they won against Northwestern, maybe fortunate to get a win there. I think North Carolina wins this game. Market's telling you so, as we've seen this number move off of 3, and it's at a pick at the Westgate Superbook here. Real quickly, I want to hit on this before we hit some best bets. I mentioned this to Mike Sanford, as I have bet the over in Boise State, Washington State. I'm not a big over better, but I feel like we're going to get points aplenty tonight on the Smurf turf. And how about these numbers, courtesy of DraftKings, for Ashton Genty, who is the leading rusher in the country? To go over 100 yards is minus 1,400. I mean, seriously? But that's what he does. He's that studly of a back, and Washington State's defense is that optional. Over 163, you have to lay minus 120 for Ashton Genty, who is averaging 10.5 yards per carry. He had 267 on the ground against Georgia Southern, 192 against Oregon, and then last week against Portland State, he had 11 carries for $127, averaging 11.5 yards per carry. Matt Human's going to join us in 5 minutes here. We'll run through his best bets, including one that's underway. He does have Kansas State laying the points. But let's run through some of the best bets from last night's Circa Friday Football Invitational. Every Friday night, some of the best handicappers in the world jump on VSiN and talk to Matt Humans and give out their best bets, which you can see all of those on VSiN.com. The most utilized college games, let's run through them. One already underway, actually two already underway. They're siding with me. All right. Baylor, -3. 4 bets on Baylor, -3. That included Kelly Stewart, Alex White, Chris Massero, and Pete Wilder. Kansas State laying 5 was one of the best bets out there. Steve Fezzik, who is currently leading the competition, was on Kansas State laying the 5. And no surprise, the pride of Kansas State, Kelly Stewart, also on her alma mater there. And then Georgia-Bama under. Interesting to note there, under money, 4 bets there. A lot of folks, a lot of 3 common plays. Let's run through these real quick. Georgia at a pick. 3 of the contestants went with Georgia at a pick. 3 went Illinois plus the 18.5. Minnesota plus 11 against Michigan, a game underway. That was a best bet. UCF, worth noting here, one of the best bets, minus the 14. Market has come in a little bit on UCF. And then 3 bets on the Friday Football Invitational. Boise State laying under a touchdown, a number that is available for that late night game on the Smurf turf. If you want all of the selections from the Circa Friday Football Invitational, head on over to VSiN.com to become a VSiN Pro subscriber, and you get them emailed to you each and every Friday night. Speaking of that contest, the man who runs that contest, the one and only Matt Humans, he runs through his best bets next on VSiN.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Coming up Monday on Follow the Money, a big Monday Night Football doubleheader. We recap a wild weekend, college and pro football, look at the openers with Nick Bogdanovich, and set the scene with the MLB playoffs. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
VSiN is thrilled to introduce a new VSiN.com tailor-made to the evolved needs of today's sports bettors. Our upgraded navigation streamlines your journey, allowing you to swiftly access articles, videos, and podcasts. Whether you're tuning in live or catching up on your favorite shows, everything is just a click away. VSiN.com guarantees a fluid and responsive experience across all devices, ensuring you stay connected wherever you are. We have enhanced tools such as our betting splits and expert picks, and introduce innovative features like parlay and odds calculators, all designed to make you a sharper bettor. Our How to Bet section is perfect for beginners, covering the fundamentals, while seasoned bettors can delve into our advanced betting strategies for the competitive edge you've been looking for. Sign up for free on VSiN.com or become a VSiN Pro subscriber, where you can unlock unlimited access to every tool, expert picks, and insight that make VSiN the sports betting network.
You're watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network where you get your winners.
We keep it rolling here on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show, and always great to have your best bet start like this. BYU, 7 plays, 75 yards, Jake Retzlaff, touchdown pass to Miles Davis, and then the first play from scrimmage, Sawyer Robertson throws an interception. So Baylor off to a promising start there as a 3-point favorite. One of my best bets, and it was a common play in last night's Friday Football Invitational here on VSiN, which is hosted by Matt Humans, who joins us right now on our progressive guest line. So, Matt, you were heartbroken last week betting on Baylor, and I have wisely gone and backed the Bears, who look like they will be down 14-0 in a matter of moments.
Yeah, it's not first and goal at the 3 for BYU. You know what, Tim? I'm too old and cynical to be heartbroken by a football game, but I did break my TV. So that's what happened last week. I was not going to touch Baylor. I was so ticked off about what happened at the end of the Baylor-Colorado game a week ago that I couldn't set myself up in a situation where I took Baylor again and lost, and that would have ruined my day starting at 9 in the morning. And right now I'm pretty happy I didn't bet Baylor, but I'm not going to sit here and root against the Bears because I know you and several other people, several other handicappers from the Friday night contest are on the Bears here. So don't give up. Don't wave the white flag. Long way to go, but this is a terrible start. Bad news Bears right now.
A wise man once told me the worst thing is hope, and that wise man is on the phone right now. That is Matt Humans. This could be, if Baylor gets blown out by BYU, we could see quit watch, and we could see Dave Aranda being fired in season here. It was could go south rather quickly. A bunch of games going on. We'll keep you updated on those as they continue. But let's jump into games that you have bets on, and we'll start out at the Coliseum. Wisconsin is taking on USC. We have not really touched on this game all that much today, Matt. The market is a little all over the place. The Westgate Superbook has USC laying 14, circa as high as 15 in favor of USC. Kind of a tricky spot, certainly for the Trojans coming off of that loss last week. Luke Fickell's squad coming off a bye. 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 local out in the Coliseum. What do you like in Wisconsin, USC?
By the way, BYU touchdown.
Yeah.
And I like to deliver bad news. No, not really. But I'm going to tell you that I was watching MLB Network this morning. Bad News Bears was on, and this is the sequel on FS1. BYU 14, Bears 0. I like Wisconsin in the points. I actually took 16 on this week. I was waiting for it to get to 17, and it was evident that the market was going to move the other direction, so I grabbed 16 before it was starting to dive south. So the ground and pound offense that the Badgers have been known for several years, that's changed and not for the better. And Wisconsin is trying to spread the field and throw the ball a little bit more, but that's been a complete failure since Luke Fickell took over last season. I think they're going to go back to a little bit more ground and pound because that would be an effective way to play USC. Braden Locke, who's taken over for Tyler Van Dyke, a quarterback, did start 3 games last season. I think Locke is a decent passer. He's not a lost cause at quarterback. He's going to need a lot of help from Ches Malusi, a running back, and Will Pauling at receiver. But I think the Badgers can hang in this game. And that's the way they've got to play it is try to run the ball, shorten the game a little bit, run the clock, and play some ball control offense. And I expect they can do that. Tim, anyone who bet USC or the under last week knows that USC defense showed some cracks against the run. And there were some big runs by the Wolverines in that game, including one that turned out to be the game winner, essentially. So I think the Badgers are going to try to work the ground game here. And Luke Fickell's got a nice track record as an underdog, 11-6 ATS as a conference dog. It's just a lot of points for a USC team that's not known for being physical and is trying to, I think, reshape its image to be laying to the Badgers here. So I took the bunch of points with the Badgers.
Matt Humans joining us here on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. Avery Johnson, a touchdown run, much to the delight for Matt Humans, as one of his best bets was K-State. So Avery Johnson into the end zone, and Curtis Rourke just threw his second interception of the day for the Hoosiers, as Maryland and Indiana remain scoreless there as that game just underway in Bloomington. All right, Matt, let's get to another game in that 3:30 window, and that would be Notre Dame taking on Louisville. And, talking to Chuck Esposito over at Stations, I was surprised to hear that the public was leaning a little bit towards Notre Dame here based off of what we've seen so far. This number sits at 6.5 across the market. I've taken a little under. I also took a team total under on Louisville at 20.5. What's your take on Notre Dame, Louisville, the Irish wearing the green jerseys today, Matt?
I think the Irish are going to step up and play their A game today. They've, come up with big performances on the road against Texas A&M, against Purdue, and they've kind of been asleep at the wheel at home against a couple of MAC teams. And not kind of, they really were asleep at the wheel against Northern Illinois. I wasn't all that impressed by the way the Irish played against Miami last week either, but I think sometimes teams get up for the big games and not so much for the games like that against MAC opponents. I'm a little bit concerned about the Irish offensive line. I know you can talk about this at length, but they've had offensive linemen dropping like flies, and it was not an experienced offensive line going into that A&M game anyway. But the one thing the Irish should be able to do still is run the ball really effectively against this Louisville defense, which I think has got a lot to prove here on the road against Notre Dame. You can't tell me that you know much about the strength of Louisville's defense after the Cardinals have played Austin Peay, Jacksonville State, and Georgia Tech. Now, let's face it, that cover against Georgia Tech last week was a complete fluke, and anybody who had Tech in the points had to be sick about the way that happened. Tyler Shuck has been pretty good so far, veteran quarterback, 68% completions, 8 touchdowns, no picks. But again, the level of competition has been relatively weak. And I think this is a step up in class for the Cardinals, who had to bus up to South Bend because of the weather resulting from that hurricane. I think this game sets up well for the Irish. I laid 6.5 with Notre Dame. Not my biggest bet of the week, but I also put Notre Dame on a couple different money line parlays. I think the Irish get some payback for that loss to Louisville last year.
Louisville expecting to get Cullen Lacey, their transfer from South Alabama, to make his season debut, coming off a collarbone injury. But Quincy Riley, doubtful to play their top cornerback. Ashton Gelati, we'll see if that Irish offensive line that Matt mentioned, if they could slow him down. He had a sack and a half last year against the Irish in Louisville. The game of the day, Matt, is down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama and Georgia. We have talked about this game quite a bit throughout the show. As many people know by now, worth repeating, this is the first time Bama's been a home dog in 17 years, 2007. First time Georgia is going to Tuscaloosa with fans since 2007 as well. Matt, right now, Alabama, a very, very short dog of 1 at home with a total of 49.5. What do you expect to happen tonight in Tuscaloosa?
I took 2, and when I was talking about this on a VSiN's show this week, got a really good question from a viewer who said, why don't you just bet the money line? And I said, well, I've been in these situations too many times where, you say, well, I'm not going to take the 1, 1.5, or 2, and then the game lands on 1. So half my bet is on Alabama +2, and half of it's on the money line at +110. Kalen DeBoer's first big game, really big game in Tuscaloosa, and he is 8-2 ATS in his past 10 as an underdog. And that's not just a trend to say, well, it doesn't mean a whole lot and throw it aside. That means something because Kalen DeBoer gets his teams ready to play for the big games, especially when he's has what's not perceived to be the better team. And I think he's a hell of a coach, an underrated coach. And Jalen Milroe, who led the Tide to the 27-24 win over Georgia in the SEC title game, is a quarterback I trust more in this game. He can run it. Oh boy, there's Baylor getting stepped on 4th down. He can run it. He can throw with accuracy, and he's working behind the better offensive line. The superior offensive line definitely belongs to Alabama, and the quarterback can get outside the pocket and make plays. That's Jalen Milroe of Bama. And Carson Beck is a obviously talented quarterback who's going to be an NFL prospect, but something was wrong with that Georgia offense. When I watched that Kentucky game 2 weeks ago, Tim, Georgia Bulldogs won that 13-12. They had only 12 first downs and 262 total yards, and the Georgia defense was gashed for 170 yards on the ground. I took Bama as a small home dog here today.
Yeah, Matt just mentioned it. A 4th and 1 at BYU's, I think, 35, and BYU just shot the gap and stuffed Baylor. So 14-0, and BYU will have the ball back. Off to a good start on that one. Matt, always appreciate it. Best of luck with the bets today.
Best of luck to you, too.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Not a great start for Baylor, -3, as they are getting outclassed right now by BYU. We'll do a little no huddle on the other side with the games coming up later today, as well as get you updated on all of the contests across the country as Ollie Gordon, maybe he's finally starting to get things in gear there for the Pokes as they're on the road at Kansas State.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For $175, you'll get access to everything VSiN has to offer. With VSiN Pro, you'll receive daily picks straight to your inbox, detailed analysis on every game, and exclusive data like our betting splits to help you become a sharper bettor. Get all of this for just $175 through the Super Bowl. Or try a monthly subscription and get your first 30 days for only $9.99. Don't miss out on this offer. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, where you get your winners.
The NHL season, folks, is almost here, and our hockey betting experts are ready for all the action. Our all-new VSiN NHL betting guide is out now with strategies for betting the NHL, including previews of all 32 teams, Stanley Cup odds and predictions, and, of course, best bets. Start your VSiN Pro subscription today for as little as $9.99 to reserve your copy of the guide. Plus, get instant access to our daily best bets, top-rated betting systems, 24/7 video access, and exclusive betting splits to show you where the money and bets are moving for every game. Don't miss out on this must-have NHL betting guide packed with key insights and data for both avid hockey bettors and those new to the sport. You can sign up for just $9.99 for that first month. VSiN.com/subscribe. VSIN.com/subscribe. I'm your host, Tim Murray. It is the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. The noon Eastern games are underway, and before we do a little no huddle and get you ready for all of the games still to come tonight in rapid fire fashion, let's take a look at the scoreboard. Michigan out to a 7-0 lead over Minnesota. They went off as around a 10.5, 11-point favorite as we got a touchdown in that one from the Michigan Wolverines. So they lead 7-0 with about 4 and change to go in the first quarter. Jackson Dart off to a solid start here for Ole Miss as Ole Miss leaves Kentucky 7-3. Jackson Dart 5 of 5 for 82 yards in that one. Kansas State a 7-3 lead as the Wildcats and Pokes looking to bounce back after a loss. Avery Johnson, an 11-yard touchdown run for Kansas State. Mentioned Ollie Gordon going into break. So far this year, Ollie Gordon against FBS competition, 49, 41, 42 yards on the ground. Well, this week seems like he's getting it going. 6 carries for 43 yards on the Pokes opening drive that ended with a field goal. So 7-3 lead for Kansas State. BYU, it looks like it's going to be a laugher in Waco. They are absolutely hammering Baylor as a 3-point underdog. BYU up 14-0 and just scored another touchdown. It is all Cougars, and this could not have gotten off to a worse start, and I think Dave Aranda might be fired at halftime. This is an absolute disastrous performance. Jake Retzlaff into the end zone. Mike Sanford right. I am wrong as BYU up 20-0, extra point pending there in Waco, Texas. Baylor, an absolute disaster. Indiana has thrown 2 picks so far today, Curtis Rourke, but Maryland has turned that into a whopping 0 points. And Indiana right now driving as they are at the 20-yard line are the Hoosiers, and looks like they are going to be goal to go. So Maryland not taking advantage of turnovers, and they will be facing a goal to go situation. So Indiana looks like they will take a lead. A best bet that has gotten off to a decent start, UConn up 10-0 on Buffalo. Buffalo in that letdown spot after their win over NIU. Nebraska and Purdue scoreless after the first quarter. Heard from Chuck Esposito this was the biggest need on the board for the house as the public was betting Nebraska. And Western Kentucky leads Boston College 7-0. Thomas Castellanos not playing. Caden Velkamp off to a solid start there. 9 for 9 for the Hilltoppers, 88 yards and a touchdown. NC State also leads NIU 7-0. Navy up on UAB 7-0, and they have the ball back through the midshipmen, and they are off to a good start on the road down in Birmingham, Alabama. Tulane, by the way, also now up 14-0. So the market looks like they might have been wrong on that game as they bet that game from 6 down to 4, and Tulane out to a 14-0 lead. All right, let's run through some of the games still to come today. We'll do a little no huddle. We'll wrap up the show revisiting the 3 biggest games still to come today as Kansas State and Oklahoma State already underway. So we'll hit on those 3 games here in just a little bit. Well, let's run through these games in rapid fire form. And coming up in just a little bit, James Madison, fresh off of a throttling of North Carolina. The market is betting the Dukes today. This game has gotten up as high as 22.5 in favor of James Madison against Ball State. 56.5 is the total here for James Madison, who dropped a 70 burger a week ago on North Carolina. Wisconsin at USC. You just heard from Matt Humans, one of his best bets today. He's going to take the points with the Badgers on the road at USC. This will be a 3:30 Eastern kickoff on CBS. Wisconsin right now is catching 14.5 consensus against USC. Here at Circa, it's as high as 15. How does USC respond after their loss last week, being up 24-20 and losing that game to Michigan 27-24? We've talked a bit about this. We heard from Hugh Freeze, a very cheery Hugh Freeze on his quarterback situation. They have gone back to Peyton Thorne, have the Auburn Tigers as that game coming up at 3:30 as well. Michael Hawkins will get the start for Boomer Sooner, as we've seen a flip of favorites in this game, as Auburn is now a slight favorite against Oklahoma as around a 1.5 point favorite. Fresno State at UNLV. Brad Powers was on VSiN Primetime. His best bet, one of, is UNLV this week. I'm with him, as is Matt Humans. What could possibly go wrong? I do like UNLV here in the spot. Anything under a field goal, if you want to lay the short money line price. Hajj Malik Williams steps in for UNLV after the unusual circumstance that unfolded this week. I got to mention this game, Eastern Michigan against Kent State. Kent State may be the worst college football team, I don't want to say ever, but they're definitely the worst college football team right now. How about the combined score of Kent State's games the last 2 weeks against Penn State and against Tennessee? Outscored 127-0 and have given up 1,458 yards total to just 178 after the last 2 games. 0-4 straight up, 0-4 ATS. The Golden Flashes, it has been ugly, to say the least, and they're catching 14 at home against Chris Creighton and company, Eastern Michigan. Should be a fun one down at the Bounce House. I know big noon kickoff down there in Orlando. UCF hosting Colorado. I like the Knights a little bit here in this spot, coming off a bye. Colorado coming off an emotional victory. Market disagrees, though, starting to come back down in on Colorado. This thing got as high as 15 earlier this week, now under the key number of 14. I think Colorado has a tough time, but I'll say this, Colorado and that offense always worry about a backdoor cover situation with Shedeur Sanders and company. They've got the skill position players to put up some numbers, and UCF's secondary is leaky at best, but should be a fun one down there in the Bounce House as UCF hosts Colorado. UNC and Duke, a best bet for me on this one. I like North Carolina in this spot. The market does as well, as this thing has gone down to 1, even a pick out there. This thing was high as 3 in favor of the Duke Blue Devils. Duke 4-0. UNC has 2 losses and coming off of a 70 spot allowed last week against UNC. Mentioned the unusual situation where Mac Brown once upon a time actually fired Manny Diaz as his defensive coordinator. No Quinn Ewers today for Texas. He is expected to be out, according to Pete Thamel, but it will be Arch Manning, and Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns are sitting as 37.5 point favorites. Not a look-ahead spot because they have a bye week prior to their showdown against Oklahoma, the old Red River rivalry there. Stanford at Clemson. Yes, your classic ACC rivalry here. Could be some weather concerns down there, but it is a night game with Hurricane Helene. However, travel issues for Stanford, as I think they waited on the tarmac for a long, long time. Ultimately, they have arrived there at Clemson. Mark Jones, who I believe is calling this game, said his hotel was without power. So Clemson and Stanford, weather affected, but I think the weather should be cleared out by the time this game kicks off at 7 o'clock. Clemson, a best bet a week ago for them to reach the ACC championship, and they are now, I believe, around minus 160 to do so. So Clemson has been impressive since that 34-3 loss to open up this season. South Alabama, LSU. South Alabama last week, how about Major Applewhite's squad putting up 48 on Appalachian State on a Thursday night. They're catching 20.5 tonight against LSU down there at Tiger Stadium. LSU 0-4 ATS this year, and if you go back to their bowl game, 5 straight non-covers for the Bayou Bengals. Do they finally get off the schneid and get a cover today? LSU laying 20.5 against South Alabama. Florida State at SMU, 8 o'clock Eastern kickoff. SMU hosting the Florida State Seminoles, and Florida State is in a spot where, hey, they finally got a win, and now they're catching 6 on the road at SMU. SMU coming off a 66-42 thumping of their crosstown rival TCU. Rhett Lashley and company, should be a sold-out stadium there for SMU. Florida State, can they get anything going on the offensive side of the ball? Arizona at Utah, late night, 10:15 Eastern on ESPN. Stormy will be on the sidelines for this one. The status for Cam Rising, stop me if you heard this before, to be determined. We do not know about the status of Cam Rising. He is a game-time decision for this one. Arizona at Utah. Right now, Utah is a 8-point favorite, and UCLA is hosting Oregon. How about the late-night affair here? 11 p.m. Eastern kick time at the Rose Bowl. I'm sure plenty of Duck faithful will be there at the Rose Bowl. They've been there plenty of times before in the past. Now, on New Year's Day, it's a little bit more important than a September 28th showdown against UCLA. But UCLA, Deshaun Foster's era, has not gotten off to a swimming start. Did get the cover last week against LSU, but Oregon laying 24 against UCLA. Kickoff 11 p.m. Eastern. We put a bow on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. Get you ready for Alabama and Georgia. Hear from both their head coaches next, right here on VSiN.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan. With a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
Looking for the ultimate sports betting podcasts? VSiN has got you covered. With a wide range of podcasts covering every major sport, we're here to help you make smarter bets every season. The Baseball Betting Show with Greg Peterson gives you daily insights into finding value on each day's MLB card. And check out Long Shots, where we deep dive into the world of golf betting, providing you with expert insights to help you bet every tournament. Find all of these podcasts and more at VSiN.com/podcasts or your favorite podcast platform.
watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network where you get your winners.
Putting a bow on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes who has helped out. Producer Dustin Sweetelson, everyone else behind there making this show run here early on a Saturday. Games underway as the Syracuse Orange have just punched in another touchdown. Kyle McCord, 3 touchdown passes for the Orange so far as they lead 20-0. Extra point pending. It is good against Holy Cross. Navy down at UAB coming off a big win. I mentioned this could be a sandwich spot. Didn't make my card because I don't trust Trent Dilfer. And it looks like I was accurate on that. Navy off to a good start. They lead 7-0, and they are driving 3rd and 2 at the UAB 29-yard line. Tulane off to a 14-0 lead. Northern Illinois off of their loss to Buffalo, tied against NC State 7-7 end of the first quarter. Western Kentucky at the BC 12-yard line. Caden Veldkamp has gotten off to a great start here for the Hilltoppers. This was a massive move in the market. Why? Thomas Castellanos not playing in this game for Boston College. 7-0 Western Kentucky now at the BC 12-yard line. UConn up 10-0 on Buffalo. Buffalo with the ball in UConn territory. Nebraska-Purdue, the biggest need for the house today, at least at stations here in Vegas, was Purdue, and is currently scoreless early in the second quarter. Baylor, hallelujah! They just scored a touchdown. I didn't think that was humanly possible. 21-6, extra point pending there. Sawyer Robertson, 20-yard touchdown run. Indiana and Maryland, Hoosiers up 7-0 in this one. Maryland driving, facing a 3rd and 31. That's always ideal. Kansas State up 7-3 on Oklahoma State. It is vintage Ollie Gordon, and Michigan is looking like they're going to punch in it again as they lead 7-0 over Minnesota. Still to come tonight, the big one, of course, Georgia and Alabama. Bama right now a 1-point home underdog, total 49.5. Kalen DeBoer as an underdog, he has thrived. Kirby Smart in these roles and toss-up games, he has thrived. A lot is going to weigh on the quarterback position. Jalen Milroe rising up those Heisman odds. I believe he's either 3rd or 4th shot to win the Heisman Trophy. And Kirby Smart knows from last year he's going to have his hands full with the Alabama signal caller.
Yeah, it's considerable jump as a just natural pocket passer. You see him make more throws now that are like rhythm throws, on-time throws, RPO throws. You can tell he's become more comfortable with those things. Still, some of his best and most exciting plays are when things break down or when he runs the ball by design. Either one is very dangerous, but you can see him as a deep ball passer, the vertical passing game, the shots, the rhythm throws, the outs, the timing throws, the RPO throws. He's improved immensely at that part of his game, but he's always been good at the athletic part of the game.
Jalen Milroe, 7-1 to win the Heisman Trophy. I took a flyer to this week on Carson Beck at Circa at 20-1. What do those odds look like if Georgia wins this game? Speaking of Kirby Smart, this from Chris the Bear Felica. Kirby Smart has been a favorite of a field goal or less 9 times, and his teams have won and covered 7 of those 9s. But Kalen DeBoer, on the other hand, as an underdog, as a head coach, his teams have won 7 out of the 10 times as an underdog, and he's 8-2 ATS. That includes outright wins in both instances as a home dog for Kalen DeBoer. Fresno State to Washington, now Alabama. And once again, he's not surprised that his squad is a slight underdog heading into this evening.
It's no one's fault that that's the case, but obviously there's going to be, even if there's one doubter, right, it falls along with the Lank mentality. And that's what we get to do is let any of the naysayers, know what we're capable of. And that's no one's fault. That's what it is. That's a tribute to what people see in Georgia and how high level of a football team that they have.
Fun one tonight for me. The only thing I have in pocket as of now, that Carson Beck 20-1 Heisman future. If I had to make a pick on the game, I would probably go Georgia, but I don't have a bet in the account yet. Matt Humans, who we just heard from, does like the home dog. No one likes home dogs more than Matt Humans. We talked about ugly dogs a couple weeks ago. Ain't nothing ugly about Alabama as a dog today. They are a pretty dog. They are beautiful. Best in class. You don't get Alabama all that often in this underdog role. Should be a great one tonight, 7:30 Eastern in Tuscaloosa. Also a night game in the state of Pennsylvania. Penn State taking on Illinois. And Brett Bielema, I like to make my jokes about old Bert there in Illinois, but he was getting some grief this week, and I thought it was a little unfair because some things were taken out of context. It is a whiteout game, and Brett Bielema knows the impact of a whiteout game. Let's hear from the coach, full context on a whiteout in Penn State.
I've been in the Big Ten a long time, but for me as a GA to see that for the first time was really overwhelmingly amazing, right? It's kind of like a spaceship out in the middle of nowhere, and there's dress. I don't know if they're going to be in blue and white or whatever they're going to be in this weekend. They're going to be dressed, right? And it's probably going to be one or the other. I know they're calling for a whiteout energy, whatever the hell that means. But I would just tell you that the part that really I think stands out is their fans are intelligent. They've got tradition, very similar to Nebraska.
So he was getting grief for the whiteout energy, whatever the hell that means. But if you heard the full context, he was very complimentary to the Penn State fans and that atmosphere. So, once again, I will happily take my digs at Brett Bielema when I can. He did not deserve criticism on the whiteout energy or whatever the hell that means. He was just saying it's going to be an awesome atmosphere, which it will be. I've been to a whiteout game personally. It is scary as hell when you are an opposing fan like I was in 2007 when Penn State destroyed Notre Dame. How about Chuck Esposito earlier in the show letting us know that the house will be Penn State fans in this spot? I know Chris the Bear Felica in the Friday football contest here on VSiN, he laid it with Penn State. I would lean that way as well. I think this is a big spot for the Nittany Lions, but I have been wrong on Illinois once this year. I thought they would lose to Nebraska. I did like them in that spot against Kansas, so that was an official bet. Hey, it actually came home, but should be a fun one tonight. Illinois at Penn State, 7:30 Eastern. That game will be on NBC, and it will be a whiteout there for the Nittany Lions. One of the best atmospheres in college football when it is that whiteout atmosphere. 3:30 Eastern, South Bend, Indiana, 16th ranked Notre Dame taking on number 15 Louisville. And we heard from Matt Humans, a best bet from him is Notre Dame laying the points here. I like the team total under. Now, worth noting, at DraftKings, I think it has dipped down to 19.5. Move that escalator to 20.5 because I do want that 20.5. The juice has moved a little bit, but I think this Louisville team does struggle a bit to score in this game. Cullen Lacey is expected to give it a go, the transfer from South Alabama, but earlier this week they lost Jaden Thompson for the season with a knee injury. Cullen Lacey, who I just mentioned, game time decision. Quincy Riley for Louisville is not expected to play. He is doubtful. Watch out for Ashton Gelati. He is a pro coming off the edge there for Louisville, and Notre Dame struggled to contain Ashton Gelati last year, and they had Joe Alt on the left side and Blake Fisher on the right side. This is a bit of a makeshift line for the Irish, but I do like the Irish to be able to run with some success. I think Louisville's a little bit overrated based off of what they've done so far to this point, but I am a big believer in Jeff Brom in these spots. We heard from Mike Sanford. He is going against the school that he used to coach at. He thinks Louisville pulls the outright upset. Notre Dame last year as a 5.5-point road favorite lost 33-20 against Louisville in a terrible spot. They turned the ball over 5 times, could not run whatsoever. Audric Estime was held to under 30 yards of rushing. I think you see more on the ground from the Irish today. So a team total under for me on this one, Notre Dame and Louisville. Late night tonight, I think it should be a really, really good one. Your FS1 game at 10 o'clock Eastern on the Smurf turf, Boise State and Washington State. John Mateer, a name to know. He is a fun one to watch. And Ashton Genty, we showed you his prop numbers. Holy smokes. 163 yards on the ground is his over-under for tonight. He's averaging 10.5 yards per clip. He has been one of the most exciting players in all of college football. 10 o'clock Eastern, that one is going to be tremendous to watch. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned, I should say, to VSiN all day long as we will continue to keep you updated on all of the games that are happening. Live Bet Saturdays coming up top of the hour. Ben Wilson, he is going to be on the mic, as well as Wes Reynolds. And you'll hear from Dave Ross a little bit later on in the day, Jeff Schwartz as well. Then Ready, Set, Bet tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the football contest show with Matt Brown and Mike Somich. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back with you bright and early with the VSiN Pro Football Tailgate show. Me, Stormy Bonatoni, and 2002 NFL MVP Rich Gannon. All right, hopefully Baylor shows some life. I know Maryland just scored, so hopefully we could bring home some bets this afternoon. This has been a blast. Thanks to everyone who joined the show today. Thanks to Dustin Sweetelson. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. This has been VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show. Live Bet Saturday is up next right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The only thing better than football is the excitement of all the content.